Hey everybody, I'm Mike with Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, and this is The Right of the People, where we use the first to defend the second every Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. So uncover your keyboards and fire up your fingers. It's time to join the conversation.
No, this is not Budget Guns and Gear Reviews, not any longer. This is MK Outdoor Journal, but it is still The Right of the People. Like to say hello to everybody out there. It is Friday, July 9th, 2021. Before we get into everything, I would like to welcome my esteemed panel. First, we have the one, the only, the irascible, yet lovable, Squibload. How are you, sir? If those pop-ups will allow you to hit the mute button. While he's figuring the pop-ups out, we will say hello to our stranded cucumber behind enemy lines, the tactical pickle himself, Calaveras 32 Special. How are you, sir?
Doing all right out here in a nice, warm, sunny California. Only about 105 today, so not too bad.
Ugh. And I was going to complain about Ohio weather. I guess I will just shut my yap.
Well, that's where we're 105 degrees and probably at most 12% humidity. So you can go ahead and complain about Ohio. I'm sure it's worse.
Well, we were in the 90s and it had a lot of humidity the other day. Today it's been actually cool, but we've been raining. You know, we got the outskirts of the hurricane. Anytime a hurricane hits down in Florida and along the coast, here we get a little piece of it. We get some rain, so that's what that was. It was actually kind of nice after it stopped raining today. Are you there, Squib? Can you say hello, or have you wandered off somewhere?
I was multitasking.
Gotcha.
Hello?
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing good. I work day shift like a normal person today, so I'm actually at home on the desktop.
Woohoo!
And at the end of the show, I have a shout out for you. You helped me make money this week, sir.
How did I help you make money?
You got to wait till the end of the show to find out.
Oh, okay. So stick around, folks, so you can discover along with me how I helped Squid make money. So, yeah. Hello out there in the chatteroo to everybody. We got Rich White out there as an early adopter. Then we have Gun Loving Grandpa in the house. Squib Lift pulling double duty. Alaskan Ballistics. Jay Howe out there. Midnight Range is showing up. Want to know what this crap is, right? You know what it is. It's some kind of show thing type deal or something, maybe. All right, guys. Well, help. Alaska Ballistic says, help me make some money. Sure, as long as y'all help me make some money. Got to pay them bills, right? So, hello to everybody. Man, Chicago, right? Had a tremendous amount of killings over the weekend. I don't want to sound like the mainstream media, and I don't want to sound all sensationalist, but you know how whenever constitutional carry passes somewhere, or even concealed carry or open carry or any kind of carry or anything that may relax a gun law, the left screams about the streets being running red with blood, right? Well, in heavily gun-controlled Chicago, that's damn near the case. Let's take a look at this first topic. This is from Breitbart. Illinois governor under pressure to declare state of emergency over Chicago gun crime. Chicago community leaders are pressuring Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, Democrat, to declare a state of emergency regarding the city's gun crime. Breitbart News reported nearly 100 people were shot Friday night, July 2nd through Monday, July 5th, in Mayor Lori Lightfoot's Democrat, Chicago. That weekend violence followed a Thursday in which 32 people were shot, including a 1-month-old girl. On July 7, 2021, the Chicago Tribune noted that 2,021 people had been shot in Chicago so far this year. That figure represents 164 more people than were shot during the same time frame in 2020. ABC 7 points out that community leaders are urging Governor Pritzker to declare a state of emergency, which will allow the city to receive more funding as the violence rages. Father Michael Pfleger is also pushing for Chicago to work with surrounding communities via one overarching plan against gun crime. Pfleger said, "We need emergency funds, we need emergency action, and the action is this comprehensive approach because what we're doing is obviously not working." Keep that in mind, folks. What we're doing is obviously not working. Pritzker's office indicated the governor is treating gun violence as a public health crisis, and he plans to continue doing so. So, what we're doing isn't working. Let's do more of it! That seems to be the solution. But wait, folks, there's more on this topic. Because, according to news.yahoo.com, dated yesterday, Thursday, July 8th, Lightfoot asks Biden for help amid crime wave after dismissing Trump's offer. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot has requested President Joe Biden send federal troops to her city amid a rising crime wave, an offer she previously rejected under former President Donald Trump. Lightfoot, who greeted Biden at the O'Hare International Airport on Wednesday, petitioned the president for assistance after Chicago saw more than 100 shootings over the Independence Day weekend, the deadliest weekend so far this year. This morning, we woke up to a city that is reeling yet again from another night of violence. This time not just against our residents, but against those who are sworn to protect us, the mayor said in a statement about the shootings, which included at least 13 children and 3 police officers. We must be united in all in this together. Everyone from the federal government on down must do their part to address this scourge of violence. Lightfoot's request came after she asked Trump not to send federal agents to the city last July, saying it would spell disaster. What we do not need, and what we will certainly make our community less safe, is secret federal agents deployed to Chicago, she wrote in a letter last summer obtained by WBEZ. Any other form of militarized assistance within our borders that would not be within our control or within the direct command of the Chicago Police Department would spell disaster. The Democratic mayor added that such action would endanger her residents. Her comments this week echo a plea she made to Biden last week for the federal government to step in following another deadly Chicago weekend. "This is a national problem," she said last Tuesday. "Cities individually cannot tackle this problem. We just cannot. In Chicago, we've done absolutely everything possible, and we need help from the federal government," the mayor added. "When guns are so porous that they can come across our borders, as we see every single day in Chicago, that damn roll call selling them into the iron pipeline, we know that we have to have a multi-jurisdictional national solution to this horrible plague of gun violence." The Department of Justice recently announced it would be sending a strike force to Chicago and other violent cities across the country to quell gun violence. The strike force will investigate and disrupt the networks that channel crime guns into our communities with tragic consequences. This effort reflects our shared commitment to keep communities safe, the department announced last month. So, look at the verbiage here, folks. In the health crisis, because that's what Cuomo in New York is trying to frame this argument as, him and others, that is a national effort, that we all need help from Big Daddy Joe to curb this gun violence. You know, again, the term gun violence is made up. There's no such thing as gun violence. No such thing. There's violence. And the tool with which it's committed is irrelevant. It's the person committing the violence that's important. And that is what they're failing to address because, where is it? Oh, here it is. It's like something I've said before. Gun control is never about the guns. It's always about control. Which I have those available if you want to get them. They don't give a damn about those 100 people that got shot. Their means to an end. You know, if they truly cared about their citizens being slaughtered in the streets of Chicago, she would have accepted Donald Trump's offer of help last year. She refused. What's different? What is different? What has changed from last year to this year? Other than we don't have the uproarious civil unrest that we had in all of our major cities last year, including Chicago. Or at least it's not being reported what we do have. We don't have an unpopular Republican president in office running for re-election this year. Instead, we have an incoherent Democrat president in office. So now it's, before it was, stay away, we don't want you, damn feds. But now it's, big papa government, please help us, please. That right there tells me everything I need to know. That this is all, it's theater. It's bullshit. This is nothing more than an excuse to advance the agenda. Because what has Joe Biden been pushing since before he got in office? What has he been trying to advance via regulation, via legislation, via executive action, via nomination to certain key national offices? Gun control. But there are things in Chicago that give the lie to their claims that gun control will help prevent crime. I mean, we know that because in Chicago, it's one of the most heavily gun-controlled cities in the country, yet it is heavily awash in blood, right? Well, here's a case where someone with a gun stopped the crime in Chicago. This is from the Chicago Tribune, which I bet they are just salty as all hell having to publish this. 3 people shot. Man with concealed carry license steps in, shoots gunman, Chicago police say. The gunman who shot 3 people standing in a South Austin alley on the 4th of July may have gotten away with the brazen attack that left a woman dead. Had a witness with a concealed carry license not stepped in, the Chicago police statement suggests. Officers were called to the first block of North Menard Avenue around 10:45 p.m. Sunday and found a total of 4 people shot, a police notification said. But one of the injured was alleged to be the gunman who had shot the other 3 people before an uninvolved witness pulled his own gun and shot the attacker, officials said. Initially, 3 people, including a 45-year-old woman, had been shot as they stood outside in an alley, police said. A 33-year-old man approached and began shooting at the victims, according to the police notification. The woman suffered a gunshot wound to the head, and she was pronounced dead at the scene, according to police. Although officials had said she was 30, around 8:30 a.m., a police spokeswoman said the woman's age had been corrected to 45. She was identified as Janina Ford, 45, who lived on the same block in which she was killed, according to the medical examiner's office. Reached by phone Monday, a relative said she was not yet ready to speak out about Ford. A man, 32, suffered multiple gunshot wounds to the body and was taken to Stroger Hospital, where his condition was stabilized. A third person, a 49-year-old man, had been shot in the buttocks, and he was taken to Stroger, where his condition also was stabilized, police said. Nearby, a second uninvolved 49-year-old man witnessed the attack, police said. He had a concealed carry license, which allowed him to legally possess a weapon. That man drew his weapon and shot at the gunman, who had allegedly killed the woman and wounded the 2 men, officials said. The first shooter was hit in the arm and the hip by the man with the previously concealed weapon, police said. When emergency responders arrived, they took the 33-year-old gunman to Stroger Hospital in serious condition, where he also was placed into custody, police said. Officer Alice Aguas, a police spokesman, said in an email that officers believe the 33-year-old had been the lone gunman who shot the 3 people, but noted the case remained under investigation. There was no further information at this time. I think it's funny that the Democrats in charge of Chicago, who have ruled that city for decades, who have imposed restrictions on the citizenry owning and carrying and possessing and being allowed to have weapons, who are saying that the resulting violence caused by criminal scumbags can only be stopped by further disarming the law-abiding and placing further roadblocks and hurdles in the way of them exercising their Second Amendment rights. Yet here we are, shown a case that proves that exactly the opposite of what they're saying is the truth. That the good guy with a gun will and can stop the bad guy with the gun. Squib, what do you think about all of that? I know I kind of ran on and on and on and on for a while, more than I usually do, but please, anything that I've talked about so far, do you have any thoughts upon it?
No, I think you completed your thought. So, I think it's important that you just followed through on that. Now, 2 things come to mind when you were talking. One is, last year before the election, how many liberals said they're not getting vaccinated because Donald Trump, right? But then after the election, they were first in line to get their, what does Roe call it? The Fauci ouchie. Yeah. So it's the same thing, right? They just flip. We're on this side of the line now. Oh, okay. I got to say this. So that's all she's doing, and then as far as the good guy with the gun stopping the bad guy with the gun, what come to mind is there's a whole bunch of people in El Paso, Texas, who were probably thinking, man, we sure could have used this guy a few months ago. Just saying.
Yep. I want to say hello to everybody out there. Had a few more hop in. We got, who else came in? 2A Dave's in the house. MK Joe's in the house. Hello. Ben Frank 15 says drop a like for more viewers. Well, thank you. And Lightfoot is straight dumb. Yeah, not just looking either, right?
Beetlejuice could be up there with Creepy Joe as far as a regular contestant on Moron of the Week, just for reasons.
Well, you know what? That is a smashing good idea. Maybe she will have an honorary position from now on. I will have to think about that.
Your thumbnail, man, it's creepy but appropriate.
Well, good. I was going for that vibe exactly. That creepy ass Joe Biden. Ugh.
It made me both laugh and throw up in my mouth.
That's good, because that's precisely what I was going for. Is that what it did to the rest of you? Did it make the rest of you want to go a little bit? Because that's what I wanted. BM Foss in the house. How you doing, sir? So, moving on, once I can queue up the next topic. It seems that there were people who expected all the violence over the weekend. Not only expected, but hoped for it. But prayed for it. And even told the lamestream media exactly how to cover it and what to say about it before it even happened. Once I can get the right doggone button. This is a piece from BearingArms.com by John Petrolina from July 8, 2021. Every town weighed in on violence on the 4th, 2 days prior. We've seen a lot of bloody 4th of July weekend headlines this week, many of them for stories which use numbers that are fairly misleading. I've seen over 6 articles all about the bloody 4th, all of them following the same narrative, and as it turns out, one of the biggest gun control groups was providing some guidance on reporting. Suggestions for covering holiday weekend gun violence in context. Let's open that link. And I will put it out in the chat so that you guys can read this for yourselves at your leisure. There you go. It's out there in the chat now. You guys can take a look at it. Suggestions for covering holiday weekend gun violence in context was the name of a press release issued by none other than Everytown for Gun Safety, dated July 2nd, 2021. Let me make sure. Did I? Yeah, it did. July 2nd, 2021. It's as if they just knew we were going to have a crazed Independence Day weekend. From the release, lax gun laws and lingering consequences of the pandemic continue to contribute to gun violence, which remains at higher levels nationally than prior to COVID-19. Going into the long July 4th weekend, many cities are bracing themselves for a potentially violent weekend. That was the first line. Wow. Lax gun laws. Check. Pandemic. Check. Everytown and the ilk has popped out their pocket watches all at the same time, swinging them back and forth in front of our faces. The lax gun laws cited in this press release have nothing to do with the violence that occurred in Chicago over the weekend, which caused the mayor to put out a plea to Uncle Joe for help just the other day. The pandemic? Please. The release goes on to highlight 11 different areas and tactics to employ when reporting about the potential for a gun violence-filled weekend. The document is thick and full of you-know-what. I believe he means bullshit. Do read it on your own. Sections from their sage words. 4. Report on the ways the gun lobby and its allies in Congress and state houses have undermined law enforcement efforts to combat gun violence. Gun lobby allies on the state and federal level have worked for years to undermine the law enforcement responsible for enforcing our gun laws, block legislation that would provide them with the tools they need, and pass unpopular policies that make our communities less safe. This year, several states passed permitless carry bills despite opposition from law enforcement and laws explicitly prohibiting and punishing law enforcement for helping to enforce federal gun laws. Gun lobby allies in Congress have proposed eliminating the federal law enforcement agency responsible for enforcing our gun laws and completely dismantling our federal background check system. 6. Cover the ongoing conversations in the U.S. Senate about background check legislation and ask senators where they stand. While federal law requires background checks for all gun sales by licensed gun dealers, it does not require background checks for sales by unlicensed dealers, even in instances when they sell guns to strangers they met online or at gun shows. Hey, I just bought one from a stranger that I met online. So, right to you. But after years of inaction, bipartisan conversations continue in the U.S. Senate on background checks legislation, and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat New York, has committed to putting gun safety legislation on the Senate floor. 7. Report on the ways the COVID-19 pandemic continues to exacerbate key drivers of gun violence as infections decline. Lack of access to income, suitable housing, and other critical life needs are key. Well, what a way to phrase that. Lack of access to income. In other words, being a lazy sumbitch and not working. Suitable housing and other critical life needs are key drivers of gun violence, and the pandemic has caused widespread economic upheaval while disrupting the delivery of social services. States and cities are just now getting many of these critical supports back online. Many local gun violence intervention programs, which have seen success in preventing daily gun violence in cities, also experienced unprecedented challenges in their work, including strained funding, social distancing measures, and an expansion of their mission to include preventing the spread of the virus. Together, these are among the compounding factors that may explain the upward trend. 8. Note the ways that the increase in gun sales over the past year has strained the background check system. So we're not doing enough background checks, but the sales that we have are straining the background check system. Figure that one out, folks. In addition, while the background check system worked as intended and denied a record number of prohibited purchasers during the pandemic, the loopholes in the law have been exacerbated and accelerated during the COVID-19 pandemic due to an unprecedented surge in people seeking firearms, whether from a gun dealer, a stranger online, or companies selling unregulated do-it-yourself firearm kits. Oh, the horror of someone exercising a constitutional right to make a firearm in their home. How ghastly. Attempts to shift blame for increasing gun violence to Black Lives Matter protests or criminal justice reform measures are based in politics, not facts. Kind of like your gun control efforts. In reality, in other words, everything they are about to say is a bunch of lies. In reality, many cities saw increases in gun violence in 2020 well before the protests started following the death of George Floyd. Additionally, many cities that have not implemented recent criminal justice reforms also experienced increased rates of violence over the past year, with murder rates increasing in 8 out of 10 larger cities. As explained above, increases in violence are likely due to a mix of factors, including economic upheaval, interruption of social services, and a disruption of violence intervention work. 11. Seek out the perspective of gun violence survivors and use a trauma-informed approach to interviews. I'm not going to read all that, but in other words, let's listen to the children. Those 6 items are just some of the highlights that are exceptionally notable. What do we have? The anti-gun group highlights those states that have adopted permitless carry while refusing to pay attention to the failures of Chicago's leadership with their prayer to Biden-Harris, or the Seattle police chief begging criminals to put down their arms. It's all rather ironic that progressive cities are crumbling and still don't have what it takes to really get the job done. Find me a cop that says permitless carry is bad policy, and I'll find you one that says it's good. Every town simply does not care about the Constitution or the fact that by adopting permitless carry, states can remove some of the legal wrongs which disproportionately affect minorities, who are supposed to be the gold standard of the progressive constituency, right? Wasn't it good old Uncle Joe who said, well, I tell you what, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or for Trump, then you ain't black. Gun lobby allies in Congress have proposed eliminating the federal law enforcement agency responsible for enforcing our gun laws and completely dismantling our federal background check system is an interesting statement to make. There is no citation for this claim in Everytown's release. I would have reported, as well as many of my fellow gun writers, on measures that aim to completely dismantle the federal background check system, but nonetheless, this is apparently a talking point that mainstream media is supposed to cover. Lack of access to income, suitable housing, and other critical life needs, etc., etc. That's cute. Who's responsible for the lack of income and economic upheaval? The virus itself did not cause everything to shut down the way it did, so why not focus on the failures of the administrations that put into effect policy that put people out of work, and how in economically depressed areas added further stress and despair? What leanings does the leadership of those areas have? Nope, the pandemic made them do it. Grand talking point. I'm not going to continue to do a full close read of every point I've selected. There's not enough time in the day, and you really do get the point. At least I imagine you do. But here's one more talking point from Everytown that really needs rebutting. Note the ways that the increase in gun sales over the past year has strained the background check system. In addition, while the background check system worked as intended and denied a record number of prohibited purchasers, etc., and then it goes on to talk about unlicensed gun dealers and companies selling unregulated do-it-yourself firearms kits. The strain on the background check system can be attributed to the FBI's inability to keep up. The NICS system was put in place based off of several promises made, and the FBI not being equipped to keep up their end of the bargain. That is, by being instant, is not something that's worthy of pointing out unless their aim was to ask for more funding for the enforcement. Instead, Everytown is pointing to loopholes in the law. Nowhere is there appreciable evidence that people taking advantage of so-called loopholes has contributed to the decline in public safety. But they think it's important to throw these fun facts around when reporting on the larger-than-normal numbers of drive-by shootings, gangland violence, and substance-fueled confrontations when people gather in bulk. That's a portion of the playbook from the Anti-Freedom Caucus. It's very considerate and nice of Everytown to be so forward to put this out there for the prying eyes of the delicate public. They might as well have paid for a billboard that read, "Don't worry about the facts, focus on these items." The sad thing is that so many press outlets were happy to regurgitate the spin from the anti-gunners, gaslighting the free world and free people in the process. There are plenty of reasons why trust in the media is at an all-time low, and the fact that you can't tell where gun control groups end and the news media begins is a big one. And that right there is the entire point of why I included this in our topics, because it demonstrates once again that the so-called media, that the lamestream media, the legacy media, whatever you want to call them, are still firmly in the pocket of the left. They are firmly in the pocket of the antis. They are firmly in the pocket of Everytown and Mike Bloomberg, to be specific. They take their marching orders from these people. They craft their stories as directed by these people, and they're good, obedient little slaves to these people. They will never give our side a fair chance. They will never give us a fair chance to respond. They will never give the light of day on a national level to stories like I read to you every week, that I plunge the internet for and find in local outlets about people using firearms in a positive light to defend themselves. Instead, they follow the talking points of the Democrats. They follow the talking points of the anti-gunners. They follow the talking points of the totalitarian anti-freedom people who want to see you disarmed so that you can't resist their plans for you. To me, none of this was a surprise. It was just business as usual. What do you guys think? Any of this comes as a shock, or is it business as usual to you as well?
Sounds like business as usual for most of those groups.
My cat food says, just came in because I'm laughing my ass off about Beetlefoot. That's right. My cat food said, I've only purchased 2 since the beginning. I'm just very conservative because I'm such a nice guy. They're talking about wine.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Okay. Oh, Squib had a Cabernet Sauvignon from Tularosa. Good for you. Was it good?
Yep.
So we've just learned that Squib is a wino.
Yeah.
Say no, you are a wine aficionado.
No, I'm, I mean, don't get me wrong. Just, I get stuff from in-state. I get stuff from out of state. I get stuff from overseas. It goes good with a meal. I just enjoyed some New Mexico white wine with turkey and mashed potatoes. But, sometimes having a glass of wine or a beer or maybe something stronger is about the only way you can listen to some of this stuff and go, what the heck is going on? But somebody out in the comment was making, or somebody out in the chat was making a comment that made me think that they were in favor of stop and frisk and things like that. So I was kind of hoping they would explain themselves, but it doesn't look like they have. I'm not interested in the National Guard going door to door and finding out who's got the guns so they can arrest the bad guys, because in the process, they're going to arrest some good guys.
Correct. I would rather sacrifice some safety for some freedom.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I asked the question, how is that freedom? And I haven't got an answer yet, so I don't know if I scared him away or insulted him or he was just trolling or he meant something else and I misinterpreted it, which is entirely possible. That's why I decided to ask instead of just assume.
Yeah, by asking, you challenge their viewpoint. I'd be highly surprised if we actually got an answer.
He could have stepped away to get some wine.
By the way, Rich White is sticking up for you, Squib. Says you're not a wino. If you were a wino, you would have been drinking Wild Irish Rose.
Even I have standards, Rich.
Mad Dog 2020.
Barf. It sounds like something Midnight Range TM would drink.
I used to drink that. Defense Dad says, Budget, I'm at work, so just got to log in, but wanted to tell you we have 20 spots left open here in Nebraska for a MAG 40 if anyone was looking to take the class. Ooh, shoot, I would like to, but...
What's a MAG 40?
Masad Ayub group, 40-hour class with Masad Ayub.
Are they going to wheel him in?
The last time I saw him at NRAM, he was in quite good health.
He's got to be like 110.
Doesn't matter. He still seemed to be in good health then. I couldn't tell you. That was in 2019 when I met him there, but which was an honor just to shake his hand as we were both standing at the trash can in the media room. But yeah, he's got to be 468 years old. I was reading
like
when
Noah?
I was reading his stuff in gun magazines when I was a kid. First, teenager, first starting to become conscious of all of this stuff. And
he was our age at that point.
He was old then.
Yeah, because I remember I was reading the same magazines, reading the same articles, and great stuff. And I'm not saying just because he's older he can't. I'm giving Moss, I guess, some shit, even though I've never met him. But yeah, the thing is, though, if he's actually in the class, then it might be worth it. If it's just his henchmen, I don't know, because still, I mean, it wouldn't be bad for you to take a class like that and report back to everybody whether or not you thought it was value added, because your opinion, I think you could be objective. You're not necessarily starstruck because you teach yourself. You have that perspective. You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's Masad Ayub.
Oh, never mind. He is starstruck. I mean, yeah. You'd be asking him to sign your check. Never.
I would, and then I would go immediately to a tattoo parlor and say, "Hey, just tattoo that." You damn Skippy, I would.
Well, this show is sunk to an all-time low.
Here's the no, it's about to get lower. Midnight says Budget shook his hand at the urinal. No, it was not at the urinal. It was over the trash can in the media room at the NRA meeting. However, had it been at the urinal, yes, I would have shook his hand.
It's okay, Midnight.
Pre-wash.
That's what I heard the first time around too. Is that it was in the men's room, and that it was that awkward moment.
No, it wasn't like that at all. But it would have been. I don't care. That's Masad Ayub.
Yeah, leave it to Midnight to drag any chat downhill.
September 9th to September 12th, south of Lincoln. Just an FYI for everyone. Talked to the owner of the range at his class last night. Yes, it is Masad himself. Damn.
Okay, then. You heard it. So who wants to go to Nebraska?
No, I can't ask. No. How much is that? No. And it's 40 hours. So that's like a whole week.
You know what I'm going to tell you. Put it on your credit card.
Yeah, but you got to pay those credit cards back, I hear.
That's why you helped me earn extra money this week so I could pay down some of that credit card debt. So after you take this class, somehow or another, you got to figure that out for yourself.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well, that's where you have to pay it back if the credit card's in your name.
Ah, yes, that is the key.
Well, are you trying to say you need to borrow my credit card?
No, I have to save my week-long trips because of my wife's health condition. I have to save my week-long trips for SHOT Show. I can't do 2 of them in a year, so as much as I would love to take a class from the man himself, I just can't do that. I'm going to SHOT in January, so I'm kind of saving that up for them.
You ever been out there?
Where? SHOT? No.
Vegas.
No.
No?
Nope.
Oh. It's a pretty
Never
nice
been.
place. It's nice.
That's what I hear. So, yeah. There's that. Getting back on track. We kind of got now, see, he says they have an on-site bunkhouse. $1,000 and 500 rounds of ammo.
You could do it.
Shoot.
You could do it. You could do it.
Well, I could, but damn.
You could
Well,
do
$1,000 and 500 rounds of ammo over 40, for 40 hours. That doesn't seem like, doesn't seem like a lot. I mean, at least for a 40-hour class, it seems reasonable. I've heard of places that are charging $1,000 and 500 rounds, and they're, an 8-hour class.
All I'm saying is that's a whole lot of freaking holsters to make right there. To pay for that. Anyhow, trying to get back on topic here. I forgot how the hell I was going to try to segue into this, so we're just going to dive into it. We're going to be ham-fisted and amateurish and just dive right into this topic. This is from firearmnews.com. Gun Safety Symposium promises kinder, gentler citizen disarmament. By David Codrea from July 6th. New voice in the American gun debate to hold conference bringing together gun owners and non-gun owners, a media advisory announced. 97% will host its inaugural conference, Bridging the Divide, understanding how gun owners and non-gun owners can come together for real reform. Who? 97% is a bipartisan group of gun owners and non-gun owners representing the vast majority of Americans who believe in gun safety and responsible gun ownership, the advisory claims. 97% is taking back the conversation from the extreme voices in the gun debate. Working with everyday Americans, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, 97% is identifying pragmatic solutions to reduce gun violence in America. We'll see about that. And it still doesn't answer who? The man behind the curtain is Adam Miller, self-described on his LinkedIn profile as a tech founder, social entrepreneur, and philanthropist. 97% was launched via 1p.org, a social impact entity Miller has created to address some of the most intractable problems facing our one planet. Claims of bipartisanship aside, per the Center for Responsive Politics Open Secrets website for tracking money in politics, Miller's donations to Democrat candidates and groups over the years have enabled the party anti-gun platform and infringement agenda. And per the nonprofit data reporting site GuideStar, the 1P Foundation's 2018 IRS Form 990-PF reported net assets of just under $18 million. They have the money to make a dent. Can we all get along? I'm a heartless, gun-toting nut job, a woman holding a baby in a kitchen says to the camera. I'm an evil, gun-hating socialist, a man carrying a bucket of branches admits. The intent, per 97%'s professionally produced ad spot, is to illustrate the divisiveness of name-calling. The gun debate is pitting us against each other, a narrator recites. But the 97% of all Americans support criminal background checks. Together, we can find common ground. 97% is taking back the conversation from the extreme voices in the gun debate, the media advisory elaborated. Working with everyday Americans, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, 97% is identifying pragmatic solutions to reduce gun violence in America. So basically, they expect gun owners to give up stuff and in exchange won't call them amosexuals and racists or accuse them of compensating for being underendowed. But if you disagree with them or their findings, your voice is extreme? I'd buy the everyday Americans claim more if every one of the characters featured in the commercial didn't come across like actors performing under direction and off a script. We've seen that before, from the average Joe Hunter in an Everytown ad to phony gun purchasers having an anti-gun epiphany in a fake gun store set up by Ceasefire USA, all presented as real and representative gun owners. But we're to just accept on their say-so that 97% of all Americans support imposing prior restraints on a fundamental right ending private transfers, which is what they're really talking about without coming out and saying so. We can't really tell who they polled to come up with that number, and more importantly, there is no way to determine if the opinions are informed. Here's a clue to the candor we can expect. They call themselves a pro-Second Amendment organization, yet exist to provide inroads for expansion of infringements. And we can see their strategy is counting on Executive Director Matthew Littman's assertion that 40% of the 2020 spike in new gun owners were women, and 90% of gun owners do not view guns as part of their identity. Littman serves as MC for much of the symposium, appearing on camera with a Biden photo in the background. He has been identified by CNN as a Democratic strategist and quoted by them saying of universal background checks that it's ridiculous that it hasn't happened. Absolutely ridiculous. For a group trying to mandate a pragmatic solution to reduce gun violence, they say remarkably little about how they intend to get actual criminals to comply. Nor do they acknowledge an admission from no less a source than the National Institute of Justice's 2013 Summary of Select Firearm Violence Prevention Strategies report that admitted that universal background check effectiveness depends on the ability to reduce straw purchasing, requiring gun registration. Why might that be? And who feels like finding common ground with an elite-funded group holding so much back and all the compromises seem to go one way? Get with the program. But on with the show, or in this case, the symposium. The pragmatic solutions being claimed include the aforementioned universal background checks, including red flag laws and gun safety technology. The panelists included politicians, gun grabbers all, including the token Republican squish added for bipartisanship creds, gun violence victims, an actor, smart gun startup and entrepreneurs, a former NRA lobbyist, again for the illusion of balance, and assorted university researchers. In the interest of complete disclosure, I was offered a spot, this being the author David Codrea, was offered a spot on one of the panels and declined to participate for several reasons. Firearms News asked me to cover the conference, and I didn't feel it would be appropriate to inject myself into the story. That's what I'm doing here, so let me get through with this and then move on. I wasn't asked until a couple of hours before the symposium was scheduled to begin. Everyone else had been lined up for some time and was coming on prepared with many slideshow presentations to address specific topics I would not have had time to research and respond to. A good rule of thumb: always scout the terrain and assess the opposition, its placements, and its strengths before engaging. Limiting my participation to one panel wouldn't have worked anyway, as I ended up with multiple objections to all of them. I'd have probably gotten booted out for being disruptive in the process, and again, my function was to observe and record, and then turn that into an article about what the 97% participants were saying. On with the show. The symposium lasted 6 hours, and I took 28 pages of handwritten notes, meaning I can't possibly cover anything but highlights here. Those who want to see it for themselves can go to the 97% website, which is www.97%.com. Let me actually copy the open link in new tab. Copy, and I will throw that in the chatteroo. So y'all can go watch this drivel for yourself. Yeah. And click on the Watch Our Recent Conference Here link at the top of the page and then register. The webinar was structured into numerous sections, beginning with Miller trying to set a tone of pragmatism over polemics that the various agenda-driven panelists would not be able to maintain. A keynote address was then given by former LAPD Chief and NYPD Commissioner William Bratton, a quintessential only one who never saw a gun he didn't want to grab. That's a term I use to describe LEOs who consider themselves the only ones who should be armed, derived from a widely viewed video of a DEA agent who made that claim to a classroom full of students and then shot himself in the leg while holstering his Glock. That appellation especially pertains to Bratton, who, per a 2005 California Rifle and Pistol Association report, needed a carry concealed weapon permit because when he became chief of LAPD, he was not a sworn California police officer legally entitled to carry a firearm. Bratton got a CCW despite the fact that his good cause justification for needing a CCW was completely inadequate under LAPD's current standards as applied to ordinary citizens. Bratton's keynote was followed with Gun Owners and How They Can Be Part of the Solution, featuring Dr. Joy Losey from the University of Dayton and Dr. Michael Siegel of Boston University. Losey explained the political divide over gun ownership with such revelations as Democrats are mostly for policies that decrease guns, like so-called assault weapons bans, while Republicans are mostly for policies that increase them, like concealed carry laws. She and her colleagues focused on proposals to allow for campus and carry in Florida, centered around a survey of 12,148 University of Florida faculty, staff, and students. There's a representative sample to draw wider conclusions from. Siegel went straight to the bottom line. Why does he want to bring in gun owners? If we were in a legislative hearing and we had 5 or 6 gun owners get up, one after the other, and all testified in support of gun violence prevention legislation, it would be a game changer, Siegel gushed. That's presuming there aren't those of us ready to rebut anything phony AstroTurf groups like Sportsmen and Sportswomen for Biden or the Gifford-sponsored Gun Owners for Safety have to parrot. He compared what they need to do here to the fight against tobacco and the way smokers were recruited to do the work of the prohibitionists. In other words, Siegel has let slip that the name of the game is divide and conquer, and conveniently doesn't mention how the Centers for Disease Control's funding for anti-gun politicking, not for gun research despite anti-gun group lies, was cut after Dr. Mark Rosenberg, director of the CDC's National Center for Injury Control and Prevention, told the Washington Post, "We need to revolutionize the way we look at guns, like what we did with cigarettes. Now it is dirty, deadly, and banned." It's no surprise Siegel endorsed treating guns as a public health issue, asserted no one wants to take guns away, despite any number of statements I've documented over the years, including that is exactly the goal from Senator Thomas Dodd, author of the 1968 Gun Control Act, who publicly wished for abolishing all guns and to destroy them all. Instead, even while admitting Beto O'Rourke said, "Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47, to wild Democrat cheers and applause, and former Supreme Court Justice John Paul Stevens advocated repealing the Second Amendment, Siegel disparages gun owners' fears as propaganda, blames fear of the slippery slope on the NRA, and calls it a myth. That's a hell of a way to tell gun owners you respect their values and want to bring them to the table. Did we mention Trump supporters are racists? Next up was Guns, Race, and Social Justice, presented by Charles E. Cobb Jr., veteran of Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, Dr. Carolyn Late of Harvard University, and Abney Clayton from The Guardian newspaper's Guns and Lies series. Cobb started off showing he understood the historical need for blacks to arm due to racist persecution and disarmament laws. So, his opinion of why blacks are currently arming is revealing. What you're seeing now is a reaction to the way President Trump encouraged, and I say this all the time, encouraged anti-black terrorism in this country. In other words, blacks are buying guns because Republicans are the equivalent of KKK night riders. Littman, Light, and Clayton grinning and nodding in agreement is all I needed to see to realize the stated goal of finding common ground with gun owners by not calling them names and respecting their values is just words. Where am I? Light then let everyone know how stand your ground laws are basically more white privilege for concentrating the right disproportionately into already empowered hands under a larger backdrop of white supremacy, racial capitalism, settler colonialism, and heteropatriarchy. Alrighty then. Clayton's main focus was on the eugenics energy she was getting off observations that gun violence happens in places like Oakland and LA. Making observations about urban violence off limits by playing the race card is one way to scare people off from looking at the root causes. It signals it's verboten to even look at it as an indicator of populations most directly affected by and responsive to a continuing history of redistributionist government policies. And that means it will only get worse. What works? Now, all of us agree we have a gun violence problem. Dr. James Shepard from the University of Florida asserted at the beginning of the next panel, which policies actually help save lives, and why don't we have them? I don't agree. 5 million NRA members have shown themselves to be the most heavily armed and remarkably peaceable people on the planet. We have a some people can't be trusted with freedom problem, and that won't be solved by infringing on the rights of people who can. Shepard focused on psychological differences on group identity and safety perceptions. What he revealed was telling and raised an important distinction for us to understand. Sports shooters who do not buy guns for protection align more closely on gun law views and crime estimates with non-gun owners than they do with citizens who buy guns for self-defense. His solution? We must stop demonizing the outgroup, he advocates. We need policies that respect the opposing view of guns. Policies must attempt to satisfy all people's, not just some people's, safety needs. Kumbaya. And good luck convincing the prohibitionists. Next up was Dr. Daniel Webster of Johns Hopkins University, who presented on background checks with the stronger the better theme. Basically, he says that they deter criminals from getting guns, a contention exhorted by no shortage of academics working off of grants, but that somehow escapes the notice of the criminals responsible for headlines we see coming from places like Baltimore or Chicago. His bottom line? End private sales, extend waiting periods, require licensing permits from law enforcement agencies, and impose extreme risk protection orders. The public across all groups, including gun owners, overwhelmingly support these infringements, he assures us. Understand, this is the same researcher who, 10 years ago, praised additional ATF reporting requirements for so-called assault weapons in 4 states bordering Mexico without a nod to Operation Fast and Furious gun walking, and who opined gun violence is not just some political issue, it's a public health issue. It can and should be addressed as such. We look at the problem as if it were an infectious disease or a point source of pollution. Not that gun owners should feel insulted or anything. Claire Boyne of Boston University broke things down into 4 categories: law regulating what firearms can be purchased, who can purchase them, and when they can be used and why they can be purchased. If I wanted to add another page to this, I'd tackle what her research says would work, but in this case it serves us better to focus on her results that disagree with the conclusions of other panelists. Laws regulating what, including assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and 1 gun a month limits, have no effect on overall homicide. That and firearm trafficking laws have no effect on homicide. The main lessons from this study, Boyne concluded: past violence is the biggest predictor of violence. Mental health is not a predictor of violence. To that end, she recommends violent misdemeanor universal background checks and red flag laws coupled with enforcement as the most likely to be successful, meaning those in all areas where gun rights advocates need to educate less informed gun owners and the public. Bohica, which, for those of you who don't know, means bend over, here it comes again. It's interesting that the title of the next panel, Legislative Perspectives, What's Possible in a Biden Administration, could just as well have been called the What We Think We Can Get Away With. That's hardly a surprise, since every one of the legislators participating is a confirmed gun grabber. Seth Moulton used his Marine combat veteran status as his bona fides for being a gun safety authority, ruling that licenses are required to drive but not own guns, which he said are literally designed to kill people. When specifically asked how gun owners who feel they're being talked down to should be approached, he cited Japan as a country that has effective background check laws for gun ownership. He said he is qualified to carry grenades, but we don't do that in this country. And if you need an assault rifle to kill a deer, you don't need an assault rifle, you need some shooting lessons. What we're talking about here is pretty reasonable. That includes banning what he deceptively calls weapons of war, conflating semi-autos with the military weapons the founders knew to be the birthright of an American. Former Representative Steve Israel plugged a novel he wrote about the ridiculous and absurd power of the gun lobby called Due Process Denying Infringements Like No Fly, No Buy, Common Sense, and that voter intensity is what he says explains the disconnect between claims of 80% support for such measures and real-world election results. He also talked message testing, claiming Republicans target the gut and Democrats message to the prefrontal cortex and rationality, which is an absolute fucking lie. There's one. He also advocated big butt messaging, that is, beginning propaganda with, I support the Second Amendment, but... Representative Haley Stevens noted how she refused to scale back on H.R. 8, a bill that would essentially end private sales because I ran to drive the NRA crazy. Next up was Eric Swalwell, who set his sights on ghost guns and backing up restraining orders against a citizen who hasn't necessarily been convicted of a crime with a federal bill to take guns away from abusers. As an aside, Swalwell's inclusion on a panel presumably set up to identify ways to advance laws without attacking political opponents' values is instructive. He's the politician who demands a mandatory buyback of assault weapons and suggested citizen noncompliance with that would result in a short war because the government has nukes. He's also the guy who responded to Ted Cruz bemoaning vicious partisan rhetoric over the January Capitol disturbance by tweeting, "You incited a riot and your Nazi friends with their Confederate flags killed a cop." Literally none of which is true. No name calling, right? Moms Demand Action member and former lobbyist Representative Lucy McBath advocated for bringing in the demographic of law-abiding gun owners and hunters and gun enthusiasts and skeet shooters, confirming the plan is to divide and conquer, breaking the sporting purposes owners away from the rights advocates. Bringing them into these discussions really helps us understand better ways to infiltrate. Keep that in mind, folks. It's going to be an expansive number of policies. It's not one policy, McBath admitted, confirming the goal is to advance disarmament edicts like 5-day waiting periods incrementally. So it's like chipping away at this huge, dangerous culture that we have just one piece of legislation at a time. What have I been telling you since the beginning of this show, since I first started this back in, 2018, I think I was on YouTube for a year before I started doing this in 2018. What have I been telling you? Incrementalism is, was, and always will be their strategy. Former Congressman Charlie Dent, the lone Republican in the lineup, quote unquote, talked about how they expanded the instant check system to include private sales of all pistols when he was in the Republican-controlled Pennsylvania legislature with a Republican governor. We brought everybody into the room, including the NRA and the gun control groups at the time, and we worked out an agreement. They worked it out with everyone except gun owners who believe in shall not be infringed. Back to the future. Money man Adam Miller returned to moderate technology and guns. Is the future finally here? The panelists were Kai Klopfer, founder of and CEO of BioFire, and Timothy O, founder and CEO of Vera Technology. We're talking biometric smart guns and a fingerprint reading holster device that is bolted down. This isn't the place to review the products, analyze how they work, and discuss concerns. That has been done before with ventures like Armatix from a few years back. I haven't seen a product I would consider buying because I find anything that impedes a gun from functioning is designed to be unacceptable. But if you want one, that should be your choice, except the real impediment to bringing such products to market is and has been insatiable Democrat disarmament demands. Basically, the Child-Proof Handgun Law of 2002 says that once personalized handguns are available anywhere in the country, all handguns sold in New Jersey must be smart guns within 30 months, NPR reported. What common-sense gun safety Democrat wouldn't demand to expand on that for everywhere and require a buyback for non-compliant guns? And since we're talking electronics, how about a remote shutoff switch to keep police safe? Actor Jason George moderated the next segment, Personal Stories from Gun Violence Victims. It's not what you'd expect. Also on the panel were activist and author Fred Gutenberg and author Taylor Schumann. George started out with some personal stories. His cousin, he said, was murdered by a gun. Not by a murderer? And family members were threatened by a spouse, and a close family friend murdered the mother of his child and the man she was with in a bit of rage. Gutenberg's daughter was a victim of the Parkland murderer, that is, a killer who took advantage of the target opportunities guaranteed by gun-free zones, where armed police took shelter rather than confront the slaughtering wolf in the fold. I want to be clear, he said. I don't want to take anyone's guns away. Perhaps not, but he exerts no control over those who do, and the incremental infringements he supports will bring them closer to that goal by removing obstacles and clearing the way. Background checks matter, waiting periods matter, he insists. Not that either one of those would have affected the outcome at Parkland. Red flag laws matter. Schumann, who portrays herself as a former pro-gun stalwart, survived a pump-action shotgun attacker at a community college with a no-weapons policy, located in a mall. What got the shooter to surrender was an armed off-duty police officer, so now she wants things like safe storage and waiting periods. It doesn't matter if logically these don't connect. Survivors like Gutenberg and Schumann have gone through horrible experiences that we can only thank God we have not had to endure, and the emotional appeal is what makes their messages powerful. It's only human to sympathize with their personal tragedies. But those do not give them the carte blanche before going after those of us who believe armed citizens could have made a difference in both instances, and that choice should not be stripped from us by an all-powerful state. That's why Gutenberg crosses a line when he asserts, I talk now about gun violence all the time, not as a Second Amendment issue. It's not. Doing something about it, there's a gun lobby that's put out the big lie for a lot of years. It's not. It is a public health issue. The big lie, grosse Lüge, was a term coined by Adolf Hitler in Mein Kampf for colossal untruths that are accepted by the public because no one would believe anyone could have the impudence to distort the truth so infamously. He's equating Second Amendment defenders with that as part of a project that says it respects gun owner values and won't resort to insults. Is anyone else sensing a big lie? Enter the Spinmeisters. Last up was What's Possible? Where do we go from here? Moderated by Alex Barrio of the Center for American Progress. Per Discover the Networks, it's a think tank headed by former Clinton Chief of Staff John Podesta with extremely close ties to Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, the Democratic Party, and George Soros. If you think that might make suspect his participation in an effort that promises to treat political opponents respectfully, you'd be right to assume the smiles are agenda-driven. Instead, check things like Twitter accounts where Barrio tweets more heartfelt stuff like every conservative is the whiniest baby on the planet. The panel consists of John Goodwin, a former NRA lobbyist, there to provide the illusion of balance, former Brady president Richard Aborn, author, commentator, and activist, and Democrat politician Bakari Sellers, and political advisor and reform advocate Mark McKinnon. He's an ostensible Republican due to his work on campaigns for moderates George W. Bush and John McCain, but who also helped the campaign of former Texas Governor Ann Richards, who gun owners with long memories will recall used the power of that office to not allow Texans to vote on a concealed carry referendum. They all started out trying to sound reasonable, talking about areas where gun owners and those who want more laws can find common ground. But it soon became apparent that a big part of the strategy is to disparage gun owners who believe that letting gun grabbers progress brings them a step closer to their endgame. Part of the problem is that gun proponents believe that any reform at all is a problem, and that as soon as you let in any reform, they're going to come take your guns away, McKinnon laughed. This is obviously a steep hill and a big rock, and it's going to take incremental progress. He then contradicted himself. When we were pushing Brady first in Congress, and we were really beginning to pick up some momentum, I think the NRA got concerned where we were going and started preferring this argument that we were not out there just to pass Brady and assault weapons and large magazines, but we're really out there to ban all guns, Aborn chimed in. Kind of like what Nelson Pete Shields, the head of Handgun Control, Inc., which evolved into Brady to mask its intentions and expand its goals, advocated in 1976 when he said the plan was to take one step at a time to make possession of all handguns totally illegal. The slippery slope arguments are always what seem to trip up any common sense reform, Goodwin echoed. If the NRA or gun owners say, oh, well, if we give an inch on background checks or on red flag laws, we're going to end up losing a mile. And it's a little disingenuous, it's dishonest, slippery slope arguments. You know, there are common sense things we can do that is not going to lead to a large-scale gun confiscation, bans on guns, like not everything is the first step, chuckle, to the demise of gun ownership and the Second Amendment in America. I think that's the first thing is using credible arguments against any of these slippery slope arguments. Unfortunately for you, asshole, history shows us that that's exactly the case, because every single time that the pro-gun side has caved and given you any fucking thing, it's always, well, this is a good first step. So tell me how a slippery slope argument is untrue, you lying son of a bitch. Sorry about that. Good luck finding any. We've already discussed Senator Dodd and Pete Shields. We could add Nancy Pelosi publicly stated she hoped the slippery slope would lead to bans on more than bump stocks. A former Supreme Court Justice, John Paul Stevens, has advocated repealing the Second Amendment, and that has been echoed by many major media sources. Representative Major Owens actually introduced repeal legislation in the 90s. Goodwin also complained about gun owners, pointing out the ignorance or gun banners who don't know what they're talking about. Pointing out the ignorance of gun banners who don't know what they're talking about. He apparently never heard the Violence Policy Center in 1988 outlining public confusion between semi and full auto as something to be exploited, or Representative Carolyn McCarthy calling barrel shrouds the shorter thing that goes up. Or the New York Assemblywoman out to ban 50 caliber rifles because some of these bullets have an incendiary device on the tip of it, which is a heat-seeking device, so you don't shoot deer with a bullet that size. If you do, you cook it at the same time. Hearing such nonsense from former NRA lobbyists makes fair the question of who is doing the hiring over there, and recalls others like the late Robert Ricker, who went from NRA lawyer to gun grabber with the switch of a pay source. The discussion then switched to systemic racism, with gun laws over-enforced in black communities. Sellers asserted that black-on-black crime is a myth and deemed any belief otherwise to be relatively ignorant. He says whites kill each other at the same, if not higher, rates. Either he is confusing rates with total numbers, or the FBI's Uniform Crime Report is wrong. But in any case, if he's then going to turn around and blame lax Indiana gun laws for Chicago's weekly homicides, he's never going to look at how destructive progressive policies have essentially guaranteed the headlines will continue. Like Yogi Berra said, it's deja vu all over again. There is no new thing under the sun, the book of Ecclesiastes tells us, and in the case of 97% and its kinder, gentler citizen disarmament outreach to gun owners, those words were appropriately prophetic. We've seen it all before. AstroTurf groups funded by elites that ostensibly spoke for reasonable gun owners. 15 plus years ago, it was the American Hunters and Shooters Association, touted by idiotic sporting use type gun writers as representing the middle ground. What they didn't tell their readers was that AHSA was bankrolled by Boston real estate developer John Rosenthal, founder of Stop Handgun Violence, as big a gun grabber as you will find, and who built a massive billboard on a parking garage along the Mass Pike near Fenway Park with gun violence prevention messages such as "Assault weapons have stopping power. Fortunately, so does your vote." Their board of directors included honchos from Crime Gun Solutions, ex-BATF careerists who worked to give ammo to the gunmaker lawsuits. CGS exec Geraldo Nunziato had this to say: "If it wasn't for criminals, there wouldn't be a gun industry in this country. The only people NRA and other gun rights groups are protecting are criminals." AHSA had ties with the Democrat consulting group DCS, whose clients included Nancy Pelosi and John Conyers. And their executive director was the aforementioned NRA lawyer Robert Ricker, who went from accusing those suing gun manufacturers to being in it for the money to helping sue gun makers. That's some third way. So where do we go from here? The question asked in the last panel's presentation title is a good one for gun owner advocates to be asking ourselves. How will we be prepared to meet this strategy that relies on longtime FUDs chronically blind to the freedom principles and new gun owners who don't know any better? We need to start with the basic Sun Tzu. To know the enemy, well, they're about as pleasant as an enema. To know the enemy and know yourself, and by that, I mean go over to 97%'s website and carve out the time to watch the panels yourself. As I indicated early on, this article, while long, can only convey a fraction of all that was said. Isn't enemy too strong a word? Many supporters of infringements are sincere and actually believe that a due process red flag here and a waiting period there and a prior restraint registration enabling background check and elimination of private sales combined with semi-auto and magazine bans and restrictions on bearing will help make us all safer. They honestly believe the slippery slope argument is unfounded, even paranoid, but they nonetheless demand all these edicts and more. But okay, I'll compromise. We can call these people useful idiots. Because, deny it if they like, the minds behind the incremental diktats, the ones who intend to rule with a monopoly of violence, do intend total disarmament. As the saying goes, it's not about guns, it's about freedom, and that's not debatable. Not that the antis who know that won't try. Equating guns with freedom is a toxic myth that hurts us all. A recent Daily Beast headline reads, "Convincing people that more guns mean more freedom is just one of several ways the right wing cons Americans with dubious alternate realities." Look for this meme to spread, along with the term unreliable narrators, to discredit and cancel anyone arguing that slaves don't own guns. Ultimately, all the common sense gun safety emphasis is a smokescreen to help remove obstacles, and what it's really about is what Chairman Mao taught, understood, and applied. Political power grows out the barrel of the gun. So, I would say to all of you out there, and if there's anybody who stayed through that article from start to finish, you're pretty damn awesome. I would say to all of you out there that you need to beware of people like this, because they're going to try to cloak their disarmament strategies in something that seems reasonable. I mean, they've already been doing that. They've been telling us this with the language of common sense gun safety measures and such. We can't let our guard down. And they're going to do everything they can, because they always have been doing this, to try to demonize us and paint us as conspiracy theorists and paranoid and completely off our nut when we talk about the slippery slope and how, well, no one's coming for your guns. We just want this one little thing. We're not trying to take away all your guns. I own guns. But, maybe they're like country music singer Reba McEntire, who owns guns but is Queen Fudd because nobody should own assault weapons. Just because someone's a gun owner doesn't mean they're our friends. It doesn't necessarily mean they're our enemy. It might mean they're a useful idiot who needs some educating. But when it all comes down to it, the strategy that we have to adopt, along with countering their incremental erosion of our rights with incremental restoration of our rights, is not one more effing inch. That's how I see it. What about you guys? Or did I put you all to sleep? Or drive you all out?
Calaveras is calling in long distance, so I thought I'd let him go first.
Oh, okay.
Go for it. That's for sorry. I got home. My brother was talking to me. I didn't catch most of the last story.
It was a big one.
So you were bringing up all kinds. I've had a discussion like this recently with a hardcore lefty, and it's like he thinks that everybody should have a permit issued by the government in order to carry a gun. Every gun transaction should go through a background check. And he says the reason you need a permit from the government is to rule out the fact that you're a good guy or a bad guy, and to ensure that you have training, because without training, you're not safe with that gun. The reason he says background checks on everything is to stop the bad guys from buying them, because bad guys go to gun shows, and that's where they get all their guns from. Nowhere else? No, gun shows. Okay.
Oh.
You're about my age. How many gun shows have you gone to in your lifetime? I don't know, like 4. Really? Did you see the Bloods and the Crips there? Because I've gone to dozens in multiple states over decades, and the gun shows are not where the bad guys are buying. I'm not saying straw purchases don't happen. I'm not saying there are. I went to a place once where a guy tried to sell me a handgun out of state. Okay. And I explained to him that it was illegal, and he said, who's going to know? I had a guy try to sell me an M16A1 stolen from the U.S. Army once, and I walked away from it. So yes, there are illegal transactions.
Not today, ATF agent.
There are bad guys out there. Oh, dude, this was back in the 90s. It's a long time ago. But the whole point being is, sure, there are people out there that break the law. But in general, overall, people that are selling their private property or licensed firearms dealers don't really want to deal with the possibility of going to federal prison. I'm not saying that from time to time there aren't things that happen, but there's such a small percentage. We know that the bad guys get their guns through theft. They might buy them from somebody who stole them, okay? But it's something that they don't want to admit, because they can't put a number on it. They can't say, well, we could do this to stop that, because then they'll come up with the safe storage laws and stuff. And then what are they going to do? Come into your house to find out if you're doing. So there's no real way to do this. But the average person doesn't get that. The average person does. Even people on our side who have nothing to do, apparently, will sit there and watch TV all day and watch YouTube videos all day, and they get scared and they're going, oh, this is happening to us, and nothing is happening. So it's a difficult situation for us to be in, because at every turn it's discouraging to do what we do. But we still get up every day and we do it. Sometimes we take a break from it. Sometimes we do. We go camping in the woods in Ohio at night. But
right.
We take a break from it, but we stay in it. And some people are out there trying to get as many people on board as possible. Other people are not. Everybody's different. You got people in here who say we all need to be the same, and I don't agree with that. I think we all bring something to the table. We all contribute. But when you hear stuff like this, it's so damn discouraging. You just want to throw your hands in the air and go, why bother? because so many people out there believe the BS. They believe the skewed numbers. They believe that the gun is what mugged them. The gun is what shot them. The gun is what threatened them. The gun is what threatened their child. The gun, and it's not the gun. It's the person with evil in their heart behind it. The same way that car, and we bring this up all the time, right? How many car accidents happen every single day, but we don't ban cars? And you go, well, you have to have a license to drive a car. How many people are driving without a license? How many people are driving with expired tags? How many people are driving without insurance? How many are driving in a car that can't pass the inspection if you live in a commie state that has inspections, right? So don't tell me about, and how many of these people drive, there are people out there that drive without a license for decades and never getting any sort of no speeding ticket, no. But driving is a privilege. A car is a privilege. It's not a constitutional right. And at the end of the day, all of their arguments mean nothing until you get rid of the Second Amendment. So get rid of the Second Amendment, and then you got a leg to stand on. Then you can say, you got to have a permit. You got to have a license. You got to have training. You got to register it. You've got to operate it within these constraints. You've got to this. Then you got every logical, rational reason to say I can back up these arguments. But until you get rid of that Second Amendment, your argument means nothing. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad idea to get training, even though I'm critical because there's so many piss poor instructors out there. There's good instructors and there's good training, and there's nothing wrong if you want to get training, but I don't think you should be forced to. And I've said before, I don't understand why we can't get rid of the 4473 and make a NICS check something that you can do, anybody can do. It's like doing a credit check. You simply dial the 800 number and you give the driver's license number. That's it. And you could be an employer just wanting to find out if this guy's got a criminal record. If you fail a NICS check, that's a first red flag to go, we need to do some investigating. But if they pass, then you go, all right, they're not a criminal. Whatever it is. You don't need to record that serial number. You don't need to know if they bought a gun. You could do a NICS check and not even make the transaction. Make it something where you have to do a NICS check before you even buy it, and then you haggle over price, and the person might walk away. You go, well, they did a NICS, but did they buy something? Our big thing is we don't want the government knowing what we have, if we have, where we have, and the government shouldn't want to know, because the only reason they want to know isn't to deal with a crime after it's happened. It's because at some point they plan to use it against us. If the government could do something to say, we can find a way to make both sides happy, make all these people who are ignorant and don't want to learn, don't want to know, don't care, they want to stick their head in the sand, feel safe. But we can make all of the pro-Second Amendment people feel or believe or prove that the government will never have a registration. That's about the only time we're ever going to get any common ground. But none of them have figured out that that's probably the easiest path for them to get gun control, is to find a way. But if they do that, then they're giving up the one thing they want most. And they want that registry. They want that more than anything else. And I don't see why I should have to go to training. All the stuff I know, I don't need no damn training. If I want to take training, I should be allowed to. I should be able to train all I want, practice all I want.
Yep.
As long as I do it legally, lawfully, whatever.
But you should never be mandated to do so.
No, your tax dollars train me how to use a gun safely and effectively. Okay? I've had training from the government. Okay? So I don't need any other training. Would it behoove me to take training that teaches me the firearms laws of that state if I got a concealed carry permit in that state, or at least in my state? Sure. For me, that's practical. But somebody saying, this is a gun, this is how you hold it, I don't need that crap. Now, there's other people out there that are clueless, and they need that crap because they'll shoot themselves in the foot, right? But even people with training have NDEs. They shoot themselves. There is no foolproof method that is going to make all sides happy. But until the government backs down from all the underhanded things that they're doing to either ban stuff or get a registry, they're never going to get us to give them the audience that they say they want. The audience they have is packed with FUDs. It's packed with owners. Ownership doesn't mean you're pro 2A. So it's a budget, but the average person still doesn't get that. They don't understand it. That's why I'm always saying, be a good ambassador. We can do so much as individuals and collectively being good ambassadors. But when you're not a good ambassador, you hurt all of us.
Yep. Hey, I just want to interject here that what you were talking about knowing your state's laws and the whole use of force stuff and all that, because you're right. I think the physical skills, but this is most important, is learning what the laws are in your state and the principles behind when you can and can't use self-defense, and as far as the legal stuff, that's huge, and everybody needs to know it. So I chucked a link out in the chat that will take you to a book by an attorney called Andrew Branca called The Law of Self-Defense. It says that the tagline of it is, you carry a gun so you're harder to kill. Read this book so you're harder to convict. It really dives deep into exactly what Squib was just talking about as far as the what's and where, whys and wherefores on it. So check that out.
Example of knowing the law about for when you can and can't use certain levels of force. Here in the last 10 days now, here in California, in Northern California, there was 2 home invasions in Modesto and 1 in Fairfield, which are about 70 miles apart, where a homeowner shot and killed the person that just smashed through their door, and because they were covered by our state's castle doctrine, being that the first one in Modesto, I don't know. The second one, the gal smashed through a sliding glass door with a fire extinguisher, saying, yelling at the elderly couple inside that she was going to kill them. And then the guy in Fairfield, who was a felon, who I believe was on parole, who had a handgun in his hand when he kicked in the front door. That's right. None of those homeowners have been charged because they were covered by the use of force laws, in that particular case being the castle doctrine. So it's important to know those, when you can and cannot use force in your state.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Critical. If you're going to carry a gun, you need to know that stuff.
Even if you
I'm not saying you should be mandated. I'm saying it's a damn good idea. And you're right, even if you're not going to carry it, if you're just going to own it for the purposes of defense, that's information you should probably do yourself a favor and find out about.
Right, and that's true. I'm not for mandate either. That's true. I'd much rather see, because that's true, at least around here, a lot of the classes are done at, gun shops that have ranges as a part of the shop. I would rather see it as some kind of program where, hey, if you take, this level 1 class with us, you get a 5% discount on range fee. If you take our level 2 class, then you can get a 5% on range fee and 5% on ammo, or something along those lines, as an incentive program, not as a government saying you have to do it.
The other thing is, if the government says that's a good idea to have training, or they mandate it, then they should provide it for free. And you might go, well, then they're going to have an anti-gun slant. If you're a new gun owner and you're so dumb that you believe everything you hear, and over time you don't start to see the what's going on, like if they start telling you, well, you got to lock it up and you got to do this. Not that those things are bad things, but that's a choice, right? You're not seeing it as a choice. You're seeing it as the thing to do. Over time, you might start to open your eyes and go, wait a minute, why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? What's wrong with this? Right? This isn't illegal. What is it? I think that's how you come to understand why there are people out there that are fighting for the Second Amendment instead of calling us crazies. Because after a while, you start to go, hey, wait a minute. I thought this was cool, but now it's an infringement on me. Hey, wait. But I think the government should offer free firearm safety training, or more importantly, free gun law training. We're not lawyers. We're not here to advise you. We're simply stating, you can do this, you can carry here, you can do that, you can do. But the problem is, it's like when you talk to a cop, I can't give out legal advice. Okay, well then what the heck? What am I paying your salary for? I don't understand how well, I do understand, because they have an agenda, right? To take the guns eventually. But if they were really that concerned, they'd say, you can have your Second Amendment, but we're going to offer free training, if not how to handle one, at least the legalities, instead of us having to pay for a class. And that's not that paying for a class. If you say, well, I don't want this free crappy government training, I want to pay, for this 40-hour class. Great. But I still think it should be an option. But if they don't leave that as something that the government provides, then I don't think they should be pushing you to do something or requiring you to do something.
Never happened. Sucks, but never happened.
No, it won't. It won't. Yeah.
Sucks. You know, I was so struck by just the sheer idiocy contained from the panelists in that article that I couldn't do a moron of the week this week, because every single one of them sons of bitches that were on that panel, in those panels, in that presentation, all of them are just dumb as a box of dog shit. So they all win the moron of the week. So we're going to skip that one and go right into what is Roll Call 219's favorite segment, self-defense shoutouts.
Yay!
For those who haven't stuck around to the end or have never seen the show, self-defense shoutouts are not where I'm reveling in the proposition that the bad guy won the room temperature challenge by taking a dirt nap. It's where I'm reveling in the proposition that the good guy had the means, method, and opportunity to prevent the bad guy from making him do the same. First up tonight, from arclatexhomepage.com, home invasion suspect fatally shot by 12-year-old boy in South Louisiana. By Carol and Roy, July 2nd, 2021. Clinton, Louisiana. A 12-year-old boy fatally shot a man who forced his mother into their East Feliciana Parish home Wednesday at gunpoint, according to police. The sheriff's office identified the man Friday as 33-year-old Brad LeBlanc of Vidalia. EFSO authorities say witnesses told investigators LeBlanc was armed with a pistol when he approached the woman outside of her home on the morning of June 30th and forced her inside, where a struggle ensued. Police say the woman's 12-year-old son then shot LeBlanc with a hunting rifle. Two other suspects were arrested as part of the investigation into the home invasion. Jonathan Barker of Clinton and Jennifer Bond of Ethel were arrested and booked into the East Feliciana Parish Prison. Bond is facing one count of accessory after the fact, and Barker is charged with principal to aggravated burglary, principal to aggravated kidnapping, and second-degree murder. Police say the investigation is still ongoing. Good thing that boy had that rifle, right? Let's see. Next up, from ABC13.com, driver charged with aggravated assault for hitting bicyclist in Southeast Houston. A man and woman were riding their bikes on the street Sunday in Southeast Houston when a driver used his vehicle to hit the woman, knocking her off her bike, officials say. Authorities say the male cyclist was in fear for his life and fired shots at the driver. It happened in the 5000 block of Jefferson Street around 2:19 p.m. Police said the driver told the bicyclists that they could not be riding around in the neighborhood. The violent confrontation happened a short time later. The male cyclist had a gun on him and shot the driver, police said. He was in fear for his life, and he was trying to defend himself, a police officer at the scene said of the bicyclist. Police also said the driver had no right to tell the bicyclists they could not ride around in the area. The driver, identified as Jose Angel Hernandez, has been charged with aggravated assault and with a deadly weapon, according to Houston police. The bicyclists are okay, according to authorities. The driver was taken to Ben Taub Hospital. His condition was not known. And last but most certainly not least, from MyNews4.com, man killed in apparent self-defense shooting at Reno gas station from Monday, July 5th. One man was killed in an alleged self-defense shooting on July 4th. The Reno Police Department responded to the 3000 block of South McCarran Boulevard at around 10:30 p.m. on Sunday night for the report of a shooting. Officers found one man who had been shot and another involved person. The injured man was taken to the hospital for treatment, where he later died from his injuries. Officials say that no arrests have been made at this time because the shooting appears to be in self-defense. The investigation is ongoing. Anyone with information, etc., asked to call the police. So, there you have it, folks. Despite what every single one of those disgustingly stupid panelists on that ridiculous symposium would say, the good guy with the gun, stop the bad guys. Oh, looks like we have someone join us. Warsaw, what's up?
Not a whole lot. Just thought I'd hop on.
Oh, nothing like waiting until the end, buddy. Jeez. Thanks for being here, though.
Yeah, sorry, I had to take care of a few things.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So, that's it, folks. We're going to wrap up. Thanks for being here. But first, let me thank my esteemed panel and see if they have anything to leave us with. Squib, do you have any words of wisdom, any plugs you'd like to make?
Yeah, I'm going to shamelessly plug one of your videos. You did a video on the Vaunt Spark headlamp.
Yes.
And I purchased said headlamp. Actually, it came in a package of 2 off of Amazon. And because I had that, I had one of them in my toolbox at work this week. I did not lose 16 and a half hours of pay because we had a 2.5-day power outage. And because I was able to wear the headlamp, I could work in the factory on things that needed maintenance, that where you would power down the machine for safety. If I didn't have that headlamp, I would have lost 16 and a half hours pay. And it only cost, let's see, what is it? $14 free shipping for 2 of them.
Yep.
So I'm glad that you did the video. I'm glad you suggested it. And I just wanted to let you know that you helped me out this week without even trying. Kind of like when people buy off of your Amazon affiliate link. They help you out without even trying.
Absolutely right, because that was going to be my next question is, did you go from my link?
If I didn't use yours, then I used another gun channel, or I did the Second Amendment Foundation or the Michigan Coalition for Responsible Gun Owners. So I bounced between 2 different Pro 2A on the Smile, and then I kind of rotate out. I got these tabs up here for different stores. So I might have bought it on yours. I might have bought it on somebody else. It was whoever I was clicked on back in January. So.
Well, alrighty then. I guess we'll let that slide.
I mean, we have to throw some money Gizzard Gary's way every now and then, or Sarge, or even the orange one.
Yes, we do. Pickle, is there anything you would like to comment upon? Anything you would like to leave us with? Any plugs you would like to make?
I just want to say thank you for the invite. I have been releasing content a little more regularly again now that my work schedule's calmed down slightly. So that's where I do have content coming out, usually on Monday mornings. So anyone that hasn't, I encourage you to go check that out. As well as if you're interested in, some holsters, I would reach out to MK Outdoors here, who is, slowly getting in the process, and he can give you more information on holsters, including, holsters for guns that are not as common. That's where, if you don't mind me saying which one which I just ordered from you there, Budget, and let me know if you care.
Well, I'm sitting here holding the mold gun, the prop gun for it. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, that mold gun is for the FMK, which is a California-based firearms company. Ironically enough, and Budget is kind enough to make me a holster for that. That would fit with the weapons light you see on there, which is a Streamlight, which matches what I have on mine. Since currently there's no commercially available ones for that handgun, so if you have something like that, I encourage you to reach out to Budget on holsters.
Well, thank you very much for the plug. Warsaw, is there anything you want to leave us with? Any comments you have on anything? Anything you want to plug?
I think I might have emailed you that article about the guy that had a full auto SBR in Chicago with the drum egg.
Yeah, I did not get a chance to look at that.
Yeah, but it just goes to show you guys, regardless, these laws don't do jack shit. Federal law, state law, it doesn't matter. I mean, they'll violate anything up the wazoo.
It's almost like they're criminals or something.
Obviously.
Yeah, full auto SBR in Chicago. No way. That's from what I've heard, Lightfoot saying, there's no way that kind of stuff can be, unless it's being fed through the pipeline.
Yeah, Call sold it to him from Indiana.
Because obviously the criminals there in Chicago really care what Lightfoot says.
Yeah.
Honestly, anything like that, guys. I mean, honestly, it's the black market. They're going to buy it across borders. They'll buy it overseas. They'll get it from another, third party. Anything by any means, they'll make it or buy it.
Yep. That's right. Well, folks, I want to say thank you to everybody who's been out there. You could have been doing anything for the last couple hours, but you're here. And I don't understand why, but I thank you for it. If, as Pickle said, I am starting to make holsters, leather holsters right now. I'm going to be doing Kydex stuff here soon. Reach out, Mike at mkoutdoorjournal.com. Let me know what you might want. Go to mkoutdoorjournal.com. I will have a page on my website about holsters and leather goods. You should be able to find that from the menu. It doesn't have anything up on it now. I'm currently working on building a few different things and taking some pictures so I can put up what I'm offering on that website. Right now, I've made a bunch of holsters for the Heritage Rough Rider, and both the 4 3/4, and today I just got a 6.5 inch one to start making some holsters for. So I'm doing that. I've made on my Instagram, I've got a pic of, I think I put it on Instagram, of a outside the waistband pancake style holster I did for my Glock 48 that has a TLR6. And I just got a blue gun for the FMK and a TLR7 to put on it. So I also have Glock 19, Glock 17, Shield 380 and 9mm EZs, and a Shield M&P 9 mold guns. Guns to mold it with, plus whatever guns I got. I'll put a list up on the website real soon. Get hold of me and I'll hook you up. Speaking of getting hold of them, make sure you get hold of your Congress critters and elected representatives and let them know what you think. Send them a snail mail, email, telephone, telegraph, carrier pigeon, bicycle messengers, everything that you can do to get hold of them and be a thorn in their sides and let them know what you think. Never, ever, ever give up that fight. I'll see you guys on the next one.